Hi, everybody. It's Amalia, founder of S.T.E.M Braids and Beyond and host of the Silver Bullet S.T.E.M podcast. Today, I have an incredible guest to introduce to the audience. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi there, my name is Melissa Lawrence. I'm a career and leadership coach for women that work in the pharma biotech industry, and I am the founder of the company Your Worthy Career, and I help women get a career upgrade.
Okay, great. And how can anybody get in touch with you?
They can get in touch with me by reaching out to me on LinkedIn, so just under my name, Melissa Lawrence, or you can head to my website, yourworthycareer.com.
Okay, great. What does a day in your job or pre your current role when you were in S.T.E.M, what did a day in that job look like?
Yeah, so when I worked in the industry, I was the leader of talent and development for a large pharma company on the biologics operations side. And so in that role, I had a pretty varied list of responsibilities. It was everything from employee engagement, like what would come on a culture survey, inclusion and diversity, career development, career coaching. So it was really quite a wide varied of responsibilities that I really loved. And so any given day could have been hosting a presentation for our town hall, looking at culture survey results, doing some career coaching, working with our HR team to maybe work with some problematic employees. So it just was a lot of variety, a lot of opportunity for impact.
Awesome. How did you get into your S.T.E.M field? Like, what was your career journey there?
Yeah. So I started my career working in child welfare. And in that role, I had part of my responsibilities. I was in a leadership position, and I was also responsible for the training and onboarding of our employees at a state level. And I found that as I kind of grew my leadership within that space, that I really wanted to get back into more learning and development and talent development. And so an opportunity presented itself in the pharma biotech industry for a contract research organization to help quality assurance auditors learn how to audit non-toxicology data. And that's not an area I ever thought I would be a part of. But I had the skill set that was really transferable to that space. And so I was able to kind of go in and show them how that skill set I could cut the time that it took their auditors to get qualified to audit reports and data and anything around a non-clinical study from 9 months to 3 months, even without any industry background.
Oh, wow. So for people who may not know what it is, what is a non-toxicology?
It's really non-clinical. So it's before, if you have a clinical trial, so before the medicine goes into people, it gets tested with animals. And so it's everything that goes into those kind of, they're not clinical trials around people, but they're trials for the animals to test the efficacy and the safety of the medicine.
Gotcha. What was your childhood dream job?
My childhood, so it was anywhere from, I wanted to be an art teacher at one point.
Oh,
I also wanted to be a kindergarten teacher and teach kids to read. Everything that I wanted to do really was around kind of giving back and making our society better and making a positive impact on people. I wanted to be a bridal wedding host, a planner at some point. So it really was all over the place. And then ultimately what happened is I really felt drawn into the child welfare space. And so I started my career there very early on, and then realized that that's not something that I wanted long-term, that it was really challenging work to be a part of day to day. And so that's when I really started focusing on the learning and development and training piece.
Okay, so I see a trend here where, from being a teacher working with children to being child welfare, I see like a natural transition. But was it in school that you realized that you wanted to get into child welfare? Like, what life event, shaped that decision of what you wanted to start to go into?
So for when I started my career in child welfare, what really shaped that is, I think, the upbringing that I had, and I had done some foster care when I was younger, and I just really wanted to be in a position that would allow me to kind of safe haven other children.
Gotcha. I want to pick a little bit on what you do right now. What does tell me again the title? I forgot what the title is. I know you
Career
do.
and leadership coach.
Okay, for people in the what field? Bio.
Pharma that work for pharma or biotech.
Okay, so what does that look like, and why would a woman need coaching in that space?
hmm So what that looks like is I help women who feel stuck in their career essentially get to that next level. So sometimes they don't know what it is that they want. So I work with a lot of scientists or women that have PhDs or just have worked really hard in their career and they're just like, I don't know what I want next, but I'm not happy right now and I don't know why and I kind of want to figure out what that is. Or maybe they're getting kind of roadblocks when it comes to promotions because it's a very male dominated space. And so they're just having a hard time getting into that next level, or they're having some imposter syndrome and just not feeling like they really belong. The kind of farther you get in your career, the less diversity you see in the industry sometimes. And so they're having a hard time kind of making sure that they're really having the positive impact that they want to and that they're contributing the way that they want to without kind of becoming a broski or kind of becoming someone that they're not to get ahead. And so I help them figure out exactly what it is that they want, and then we achieve it all within the pharmaceutical biotech space.
So what I kind of hear you saying is that having the technical expertise is not sometimes the only thing you need to be able to progress in your career. Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
100%. So that tends to be something that you can usually get by for a while early in your career with just the technical expertise. But then when you're looking to kind of stand out or kind of go beyond a specialist or entry level role, and you want to break into like a supervisor or a manager or associate director or anything like that, or even have span of influence across the site that you're in, or maybe go globally, then you really need to build your professional development skills around communication, influence, getting buy-in, seeing yourself as a leader regardless of your title.
Wow. So do you think managing a team is one of the things that adds some of those? I actually had a conversation with someone else that I'm actually going to refer your way. So I'm sure she's going to be looking at this. So do you think stepping into leadership is going to be one of those key pieces to be able to shape a full 360 kind of direction for a career beyond technical skill?
Yeah, and the way that my philosophy on it is that you can be a leader regardless of your title or the level that you're at or whether or not you have direct reports.
Mhm.
And we're taught so much early on, and I think this really ties to like how you might end up in a STEM field, is we're taught early on really like what good looks like, what success looks like, and how to get good grades on tests and like all of the things that our family and everyone around us tells us is the right answer to things.
Mhm.
And what happens is you spend your life following this kind of narrow path, and then you wake up one day when you're 25 or 35 or 45 or even 60, and you're like, what am I doing? I'm actually not happy. And I want to figure out what it is that I really want, not just what society or everyone else tells me is an option, because we get so limited in our view just based on what we have exposure to.
Absolutely. I want to ask you an interesting question that wasn't on my list.
Sure.
Do you see a common thread across the women you coach who are in the STEM field? Like if there's something looking back or something someone beginning their journey should be aware of so that they have different results, like what does that look like? The commonality you see when you
Yeah, so I will say that everyone I work with tends to have the same profile in the way that they think about themselves and the way that they see what's possible. Like they're all high achievers, really care about making a difference in their career, feel like they're doing all the right things, have some perfectionism, can get caught overthinking and all of these things, and it kind of keeps them stuck. And I think the one thing that is important to listen to, which I had this for myself too, because in a lot of ways I am the person that I help. I went through this journey myself, is to listen to that voice that there's something more or different for you. So even though I built a very successful career in the industry, I still never felt like I arrived. I never felt like I was in the right job for me, but I decided I was just going to chase the things that were of interest to me. And that's how I ended up going to grad school and all of these other things. And so that was really beneficial, but it was a really long route that I took. But I always had these thoughts of, there's something more for me. I could be having a bigger impact than what I'm doing. And that's really the voice that a lot of my clients have also. So I would say to listen to that. Like if you have that voice, it's because that is true for you. Like your brain wouldn't offer you the thought that you could have something different if you couldn't.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so good. In hindsight, looking back at your life, your childhood, do you feel like there were elements in your life, like you talk about listening to your inner voice, that could have or should have led you here sooner?
Mm. Mm. So I do attribute, I've always had this voice that there was something different, but I didn't necessarily know that that difference was good when I was younger. And I have been told consistently that I think about things differently. And I didn't always necessarily see that as good either. And so I don't know that I would have thought to come into STEM sooner because I just didn't have the exposure to it. It just wasn't, I grew up in Wisconsin. There's not a lot of pharma companies there, biotech companies there. And so anything STEM related would be going into math or being a doctor. It wouldn't be working in this industry. So I didn't even have any thoughts about how medicines were created to even know that there are people that were behind that.
Wow.
So I don't know that that would have happened any earlier.
Wow. Oh, that gives me chills. What do you wish you knew sooner about being able to pursue the field you're in now?
I think that it was an option. So how I got in, I shared a little bit about how I got into it. I had those transferable skills, but also that I knew someone that was in the industry. And so when I knew someone that was in the industry, that obviously gave me the exposure to the industry to even know it existed. And the way that they talked about the company they worked for sounded really attractive to me. And so I started looking and they had this position open up for a QA trainer. And I met all the qualifications, but I didn't have a scientific background. And I would say to really push against the boundaries to, because I didn't have a referral for that position. And I did have pushback on that position that I ended up getting because I had the kind of HR learning and development side that saw, okay, she has the transferable skills. But then I had the scientists and the people that were in the quality group that said she doesn't even have a science degree. Like, how is she going to teach our auditors how to do this when she isn't even qualified to be an auditor? Right. And so like I had to really prove myself in the interview process. I had to do a presentation, I had to do all these different things. And at the end of the day, it was kind of at odds. And I just kept kind of being persistent on how I could be successful in this role to the point that they offered me the position. And then it became all about just proving that you can be successful in this industry, regardless of what your skills are, as long as you apply them and show how they're valuable. So you have to do the work once you're in to prove that those skills do work.
You know what is so interesting about what you're saying is that I've heard studies say that women usually meet 60 to 75% of a job and will not apply for it because they think they're not qualified enough. But here it is. You were about 90% qualified, applied for the job, and still, because you had the resilience, was able to push through. Another woman might feel like, well, I already felt like I wasn't qualified for the job. I think that sort of stuff can trigger imposter syndrome if you don't have the resilience, do you think?
Definitely. And I think that is where it's helpful to distill the deliverables of what's expected for that job and to be clear on how you can meet those. So every time they would come with the resistance of like, but you don't have a science degree, but you don't have a science degree. It was like, yes, but I know how to teach adults how to do this work faster than anyone with a science degree. Because they don't know adult learning. They don't know, what it takes. Like they were teaching in a very like antiquated way at the time that was just not effective. And that's partly why it was taking so long. And also that kind of closed-minded thinking is what was creating a result of waiting almost a year to qualify people. And so they needed someone that was outside, that had a different perspective, but also had the skills to fill the gap that they had, right? So it takes a little bit of a leap of faith, I think, on the company, but it also takes you being really sure that you have those transferable skills. Because if you're interviewing and you don't meet all of the requirements and they're coming at you with like, yeah, but, and you're just like, I think you're right, then you're obviously not going to get the job. So you have to be able to come back and say how they're not right.
I think what you're highlighting for me is that diversity is not only ethnic based, it's also career path, because they didn't know what they didn't know, and you were able to shave off 6 months from it. So I love you for saying that. What is the most surprising thing most people may not realize about your industry that you can share?
I would say, I mean, external to the industry for sure, it's how much people really care about the work that they do. So I think if you were to just watch the news, you would see a lot of critical feedback around the pharma biotech industry. And not that it's perfect, but everyone that I've come across with, and I worked within the industry, like now I support the industry full time. I have for a few years now, but I worked within the industry for 10 or 12 years. And everyone that I met cared about patients, cared about the quality of their work, wanted to do the right thing. No one was in it for like a quick buck or just to like for their job. Like they really understood the impact of the work that they were doing. And I think that really surprised me that with my mission of always wanting to make a positive impact in the world and to work for companies that do that, that I didn't realize that this was an industry that does that and that has that type of mission and belief also.
Wow. I want to circle back to something in the last question, because you share about a lot about having answers and being resilient. What in your journey led you to having the resilience you do? Because here's another parallel. So we first talk about applying for the jobs. When it comes to women applying for patents, they stated that less than 1% of the women persist and speak up for themselves. I have patents, and I didn't find that out until I had the third patent. I was like, oh, so life was shaping me to be resilient and have the answers. What in your life developed that resilience?
I think it was always like I wasn't necessarily dealt a really great hand growing up. And so I always had things that I had to overcome. I always was faced with decisions that could either be dangerous or safe, that could put me on one path or put me on the other. And I always just felt that I was going to make different decisions. And I felt in a responsibility and accountability to myself to create a different life for me. And so that created me being like the first person in my family to go to college, or the first person that in my family, anyone in my family to like, except for the family I created for myself that work in the industry. So I think it's just this perseverance and seeing how those obstacles that you have in life, they're not holding you back. They can be preparing you for your future.
All right. So most people may think if you're resilient and strong, but I'm using the term strong loosely, that you never feel intimidated or the imposter syndrome. Have you felt that in your career?
Oh, all the time. All the time. I feel like I reach a level and I will feel like I have made it. And then I'll get to my next level of growth, right? And I'll be at this kind of upper limit and I have to kind of break it through. And I mean, the way that I look at it is imposter syndrome is completely normal. I think that when people use it as a weapon against themselves of like there's something wrong with them, that's where it can kind of keep them small. But like I look at it as I have imposter syndrome because the way that I see myself hasn't caught up to my reality.
Right.
Like I have achieved something and I'm just not seeing that yet, or this is new to me. I haven't done it before. So of course I'm going to feel uneasy. And that's where I have a kind of a complicated relationship with imposter syndrome, because I know it's something that's thrown around a lot. And I do think that there's validity to it. I also think that it can do us harm to label ourselves as having it, because then it kind of becomes a safety blanket of like, oh, I'm not going to speak up in this meeting, or I'm not going to go after this job because I have imposter syndrome. Like, as opposed to just saying, of course, this feels uncomfortable. I haven't done it before. Right. And then just doing it anyway.
It's just like learning a new skill. If you're I was sharing with my kids, oh, someone asked me if I wanted to buy a bike, and I don't know how to ride a bike. And
Mhm.
so the kids were like, you should try in my old age. And I started feeling like this severe panic attack. And then I was like, but I've done so many other things that require a level of balance. Why would riding a bike scare me? And
Mhm.
like you're saying, like leaning in, this is like a different meaning for leaning into the discomfort of a new place.
Yeah. Well, and just working through like what's the worst case scenario anyway. So like with your bike, it's like you fall down, like so what? And then you get up. Or like I like to think of things just to neutralize that negative emotion, to think about like movies you might really like. Like movies always have like the person you're rooting for, they always have obstacles they have to overcome. And then finally they make it through and then they get their happy ending. But if they never had that, if it just was like everything is easy and planned out for me, then like it would be really boring.
Yeah, absolutely. I think somebody's life was just blessed by that. Okay, so my last question for you is, what does STEM mean to you?
STEM. Um, I think again, I feel like this is like very nuanced for me. I see STEM as like innovation and positive impact and change and necessity and exciting. I see so many positive things with it. I also think it is has a correlation of negativity of, elitism or um difficult for women or difficult for people that don't identify as a white man, like, and so it's very complicated because when I think of STEM, I think of the difficulties, but I also think of the potential. And so that is why I think you do what you do. That's what I do. What I do is really to break through that barrier, because the more people that just move into this space and like create a name for themselves there, the more we diversify it, the more that it doesn't have the negative stigma and it's just innovation and potential and positive impact.
I love it. I love the fact that you said that it's complex, because if there's a word that really says all of what it is, that's definitely what it is. So go ahead and tell everybody one last time of how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, just under Melissa Lawrence. My company name is Your Worthy Career, so my website is yourworthycareer.com. You can reach out to me there. I tend to have freebies you can download to help you with your career, or free trainings you can sign up for. So I would definitely check that out. And if you connect with me on LinkedIn, just come over and say hello.
Absolutely. So one last question. So do you work with women across every STEM field or solely in one field of STEM?
So I generally work with women that work in the pharmaceutical or biotech industry. So any woman that's in the life sciences. With that said, I've also worked with women in other STEM areas, like in finance or in different groups. They're usually by referral. So when you check me out, you'll see all of my messaging is around women in pharma and biotech. But I've definitely had people refer that are friends or colleagues who work in finance or other STEM areas that are looking to get that career upgrade.
That's so awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for being a guest today. Please say goodbye to everybody.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.